Greetings and bienvenue, midnight crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
A young boy walking along the shore of the lake overhears two fishermen talking about a mythical species of fish that appears in this lake, which if eaten will satiate a man forever and grant immortality. Curious, the young boy inquires about this fish, asking what it looks like. The fishermen reply that they themselves have never encountered it. Otherwise they wouldn't be here fishing. Fair enough, says the boy. Do you know anyone who has witnessed it? The fishermen look at each other, scratching their heads, before one of them directs the boy towards a hut at the end of the lake, in which an old man is said to reside who has seen this fish. The boy, eager to find out about the source of this rumor, heads towards the hut, which appears desolate, covered in moss and other vegetation. Upon entering the doorless structure, he is greeted by an emaciated old man. Surely this can't be the man who knows about the fish. He looks too sickly. The boy thinks.
Greetings, young'un. I haven't seen you around here. Are you looking for something in particular?
Asks the presumed knower of fish. Well, I heard from two fishermen that you know about a particular fish that will satiate me forever. The now less enthusiastic boy exclaims.
Oh, that, yes. Lad, it was over 50 years ago that this fish was last caught, by my old comrade Alfredo. We were the best fishermen in this area, constantly crafting new ingenious methods to haul and fish. We built our own rods, lures, rigs, just to get these extraordinary fish to bite that we constantly heard were in this lake from our elders. In my village, everyone was after this prized fish, since getting one of those would secure the prosperity of your family. Me and Alberto were no exception to this, but Alberto was particularly motivated as he was the sole breadwinner for his family. So we sat here, every day, well into the night, waiting for the catch. It's not that we didn't catch any fish, but none of them were any good. Just the common carp you can see when you look into the lake from the shore. These carps are hard to catch as is, which is fortunate for them as my entire village was trying to fish, and they'd have gone extinct if it hadn't been for their wits. I digress. One night Alfredo seemed particularly anxious. He told me a nervous feeling had overcome him, that all of our efforts might have been in vain, that maybe this fish was not real after all and we were wasting our youth. I asked him what else there is to do and concentrated again on fishing. 2 hours passed and I heard Alfredo calling. He was holding a fish tucked under his arm and told me he was going to call it a night. I thought nothing of it and didn't even take notice of what it was. I was so focused on my own task that I only took a quick glance at him and nodded. The next afternoon, when I arrived at the lake, no Alfredo there. The next day, still no sign of him. I returned to my village, expecting to find him at his house. But no Alfredo. No nothing. In fact, the house was left vacant. I'll be damned, he really caught the bastard and left without notice.
And you weren't angry at Alfredo? The young one asks.
There was nothing to be angry about, no one to direct my anger at other than myself. Had I only noticed what he was doing that day, I wouldn't be here either. All I have now are our manuscripts describing the fishing process, the conditions, the different lures. For my entire life I continued to fish on this lake, but now my body is too weak to support me, because I have given the teachings to a few people, including those fishermen you saw. They bring me some of their catch for free. The manuscripts are the only thing I can offer now. I can't read them clearly anymore, so you'll have to figure them out yourself. On the condition that you give me some of your fish occasionally. I will hand them to you as well.
The boy agreed to this deal and set out to read the manuscripts. Hundreds of pages detailing the process of crafting a fishing rod, including where to source the wood, where to source the lures, all records of fish being captured in different weather conditions, etc., down to every minute detail. Based on the material he had, he started looking for wood first. The fishing master described that the ideal tree to source wood from is found growing on rocks, with a single taproot digging deep into the stone. Exactly from this root wood, he needed to fashion his fishing rod. The boy spends 2 months trying to uproot the tree, little by little, expending all his force. After that, he gets the local carpenter to cut it off with a chainsaw and fashion him a fishing rod. The best lure, the one the old master also used on that night, was to be made from a species of crayfish found in a particular river up north. Again, he spends weeks identifying the river and multiple days gathering those animals in a bucket. When it comes to the fishing process, The boy has high hopes since he followed everything in the manuscripts. Days pass, weeks pass, months pass, but he couldn't catch anything. No bite whatsoever. He asks other fishermen who seem to have better luck. But they are utterly clueless, as they had cut corners during the process and still caught regular fish. So he goes back to ask the old man in the hut, trying to determine what went wrong. Upon returning, he finds the hut empty with no old man in sight and figures he had died. With no one to turn to and utterly devastated, he sits at the lake for the next few hours. Suddenly, a tap on his shoulder awakens him from his trance. He finds a tall man with a tan complexion has appeared behind him, looking no more than 30 years old.
Boy, do you know what you are looking for?
The boy, still confused and unsure whether he is even pursuing the fish anymore, continues to stare into the distance. The stranger proceeds to take a few steps towards the lake, and, having waited a few seconds, pulls out a fish from the lake in a sweeping motion. He tosses the fish to the boy, and without allowing a word to be uttered in response, disappears into thin air. Upon closer inspection, it turns out to be the same species of carp that ordinarily roams the lake, regularly caught by the other fishermen. Realizing this, the boy is liberated.
I'm not that good at stories, but I have one if anyone's interested. Be me, living in shitty Midwest town. Super small, less than 500 people. Only child, parents moved there cause it was cheap as shit. They tried to make it sound like they were making some savvy decision to move there. But it was pretty much cause we were poor as fuck. I was there during my high school years, and there was absolutely nothing to do but drink and occasionally get some shitty weed. The nearest Walmart was an hour away, you get the idea. I had a small group of friends that accepted me pretty fast, so that was a plus. We would just drink beer and drive around dirt roads and make fires in the woods and shit. My best friend at the time, Cooter, used a nickname that I still find hilarious, was one of the coolest dudes you could ever meet. He was pretty much the only normal person in that town, and he once told me how happy he was that I had moved there. No homo. Most of the other people that I met there were people who didn't get out enough, and that just made them weird over the years. There was one dude named Douglas who was the weirdo that even the weirdos thought was fucked up. This guy was like 40 and just spent all his time walking around talking into his Zippo. And when I say walking around, I mean walking everywhere. You would see him on random roads, cutting through yards, walking through fields. He'll come up on you in the woods. You name it. And the whole time he's looking straight ahead, whispering into his lighter. Anyway, the main part of the story isn't about him exactly. The main part is about this shitty-ass road that people called Jethro's Gully. The road didn't really have a name, but that area was called Jethro's Gully, and people would say, "Let's cut through Jethro's Gully," so we just called the road that. Anyway, I don't know why it was called that, and I never found out, but it was kind of a fuck spot that only teenagers would go through. The reason people don't go through there is because it's not maintained at all, and at some point they laid down a better road that just goes around that whole area. Also, like 17 people died on that road because of how shit it is. Basically, it goes downhill kinda, and then there is a sharp turn at the bottom, with like a creek right there. I guess that's the gully. I'll make a picture of it because so you can get what I'm talking about. Anyway, like I said, over the years a lot of people died in that spot because it can get slick after the rain. They even put up guardrails at one point, but people hit it so many times that they don't even maintain that shit. Everyone just uses the other road, like I said. Douglas, the guy who talks to his lighter, had an accident there and his brother died in the accident, and Douglas was never the same after that.
So what is the point of all this? I'm getting there, calm the fuck down.
If this town had one claim to fame, at the very least locally, it would be Jethro's Gully. Not just because of the accidents, but because of the orange light out there. You see, right on the corner you can see this orange light out in the field. And when you drive up there at night, you see the light out there. And it looks like a farmhouse window. But guess what? There ain't nothing over there. As soon as you turn the corner and keep driving, the light disappears. So naturally people speculate, optical illusion, shit like that. One night in the fall, Cooter and I were drinking beers, driving around. Wound up at the spot. I had been living in that town for only a little while compared to most at that point, and I was still curious about the orange light. To most people it was just something that they cocked their head and go, "Oh, would you look at that," and move on with their day. But I wanted to figure out once and for all what was causing it. So like I said, Cooter and I had had a few, and we ended up at Jethro's Gully by the turn. We get out and continue drinking our beers. We can see this fucking thing out there in the field, and I swear it looks almost exactly like a window. I tell Cooter, let's go over there and see what it is. He says it's an optical illusion, there is nothing over there. Yeah, but what's causing it? He says let's do it. We climb down into the frickin' ditch and cross the creek into the field, and it's really dark out, so we're just guessing as to where we are stepping. We're keeping an eye on the light the whole time and just walking towards it. Farm fields look kinda smooth from the road, but trust me, they aren't. We keep walking and talking along the way, coming up with theories about what it is and all that. Once we are about halfway through the field, I start seeing some definition in the light. I swear it looks like a window with the little wooden cross in the middle. And on the sides it almost looks like curtains. Cooter says he doesn't see it, it's just a blob of light to him. We keep getting closer, and to my dismay the light begins to dim. We keep getting closer and it keeps getting dimmer. Closer and closer, dimmer and dimmer. Until finally we are right where it had been, and it's gone. We start heading back to the car after that. Once we get there we see that Douglas is standing by the car looking at us. Did you see them? Cooter and I looked at each other like WTF.
That's where they all are, over at that farmhouse.
No, we didn't see anything, man. We ask him if he needs a ride or anything.
No.
He just keeps walking down the road. Cooter and I get in the car and drive back to town talking about the light and what Douglas was saying. It was a pretty surreal experience. I've moved away since and haven't been back in many years. Still don't know what the light is.
In a small town in the middle of nowhere, there were two dojos. One dojo valued strength, brute force, willpower, and dominance. The Scorpions. The other dojo valued honor, integrity, hard work, and teamwork. The Eagles. The Scorpion dojo was notorious for using regulated steroids for improved work, and a time was coming where the two were gonna compete in a national championship for a title. The senseis of the Eagle dojo made it clear, no drug usage, we are for honor, we need to show the world a message of what you can achieve through hard work. But that didn't deter the team. They all met behind the sensei and agreed to inject steroids. Except that one fucking guy, who ruins everything. I'm too honorable to sink to that level. Let's call him Tim. Naturally, during training, Tim fell far behind the talents of his peers. His sensei was so disappointed that he cast him out of the dojo, scolding him. What the fuck happened to you, man? You were once our shining star. Naturally, the Eagles fought the Scorpions and barely won. The Eagle sensei gave a speech to the audience. Let this be a lesson to all you children, hard work, discipline, and honor always beats egoism, always beats dishonor, always beats shortcuts. The Scorpion sensei saw Tim weeping alone one day. He said, I understand you, my friend. I too was once like you. I never could compromise my own personal honor for social vainglory. So I'm honest with who I really am. Even if the Buddha himself were to spit on me for not appearing honorable, I know within I am true to who I really am. Come, join my dojo, and we will show your true potential with no bullshit. What does Tim do?
Here's a second-hand tale from my mother. Not really spoopy. Sort of wholesome, actually. Be me, unborn as yet. Mom is very pregnant with me. Just days before she gives birth to me. No more than a month, her father passes away to his cancer. She's crushed. Had been hoping he could be there to meet me. She was depressed in the days leading up to my birth, which ended up being a C-section, her first and only. After I'm born, we're in the hospital. Normal newborn stuff, and she's recovering from the surgery. She was still depressed, trying her best to feel the happiness one should when holding their firstborn son. One night she can't help but lay there and cry. A nurse she hadn't seen before comes in. Chalks it up to being on the night crew covering for someone. Mom recalls feeling a warmth as soon as she had come in. The nurse is very kind, talks my mother out of her tears and offers to pray with her. Nurse says,
I want you to know your father is incredibly proud of you and baby Anon. He was there with you the whole time.
Mom smiles at first, but realizes she hadn't mentioned Grandpa had passed. Mentions this and the nurse smiles but says nothing further. Squeezes Mom's hand and leaves the room. Mom wasn't afraid, said she felt such peace and had her first good night's sleep since going into labor. Asks about that nurse the next day to the reception of odd looks. No one under that description works here. She wasn't afraid at this news. She believes it was an angel that came to comfort her. I do have a spoopy tale that ties into this, which I will write up below. Me. Maybe a year old. Dad is in the army, so we moved around a few times when I was young. He got a short posting to a base in Oklahoma. This time just him, my mother, and I moved there while my older sisters stayed in the family house with my aunt and grandmother to stay in their school. Naturally, I remember nothing. But as soon as we moved into the house down there, my father was struggling to sleep. Felt a depression and, as he puts it, an almost paranoia at everyday life. He began having awful nightmares, which he hid from my mother for a time. A terrible dark figure stalking him. Coming at him from the stairs usually. He said he began to see it while awake, and this is when my mother learned of it all. She prayed for him every night. One night he awoke with a shriek, and shrieked again when the door banged closed.
It came into the room. Good God, it's here.
He's hysterical enough that he starts praying out loud himself. Surprising, as he's generally non-religious. Mom felt that same warmth she had when the nurse from above post had entered her hospital room. Along with the warmth came the sensation of a presence in the room. Like a light they couldn't actually see. She heard a whisper.
Be at peace and find ease. We are with you.
She says it was the voice of the nurse and her father. In harmony. Dad almost immediately fell back into sleep, and she lay there awake the rest of the night. She asked him the next morning about it all. If he had heard the voices too. He tried to brush it off, but, being married, she knew he probably had. The nightmares stopped. He never saw that face again. I myself can say that. Especially as a child, whenever I felt scared of something, I would feel that warmth myself. I like to think Grandpa is with me, like a guardian angel.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.